We're live. We are live.
Yeah, man.
Oh man, it's exciting.
Yeah, man, it's the first time for
Cool.
me. First Q&A for EDMProd.
Yeah. How you doing, man? How's your day been?
Oh, good. It's been it's 9 p.m. right here.
Super
It's
late.
9 a.m. at your place, probably.
Did I tell you I thought this call was like 2
Yeah.
hours ago? I was rushing, man.
Did you wake up too
Rushing so
early?
much. And then, I woke up at 4:30, so I didn't but I went to the gym and then dropped my friend off at work and so on and so on.
Okay.
And then I
Are
had
you
like
at the sharing space right now, or are you at home?
No, I'm at home. And I was like, oh wait, it's only 10 a.m. PST, and Connor's saying it's like 12. So it was kind of a relief, actually.
Yeah, you had some extra time there.
Exactly. Cool.
So you guys send out an email to everyone to join, right?
Yeah.
And a Facebook group as well.
Yep. So we're basically just waiting for some questions to come in. Like, we do have some questions that have come in before the call. So
let's just pick one.
Yes. Do you guys want me to choose a question just to kind of get going?
Yeah, let's do it. Are people
so this will be
watching?
kind of open format. So if you guys have questions as they come up, just put it in the group chat. I'll just be making a list of everything and then giving it to them as we go.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. So the first question, there's a couple from Jaco, not sure how to pronounce it, but he was talking about how realistic is it being a ghost producer? So the first question that he asked is, what are the average minimum requirements to become a paid ghost producer? Kind of get into the field. And is ghost production worth doing in the short term or in the long term? So what would be the benefits and the cons of doing that?
So the requirements actually just as your music, in my opinion. In the end, it just really matters if you're a good producer, yes or no, because the brand doesn't matter because you're not an artist yourself. It's all about the music. And what was the follow-up question from that?
Is it a good short-term or long-term career to be a ghost producer?
It could be a long-term career. It depends on you, like if you're really active in the music industry and if you connect with a lot of people and people know where to find you and people know that you are a ghost producer, you sell yourself in the right way. I think it's definitely possible to make a living out of it. There's a lot of examples of people who do make a living out of it. But I think it is kind of hard. But in the end, everything's hard. To become an artist is hard as well. So yeah, it definitely is a possibility, but you just need a different approach. It's not like the standard approach that you have as an artist. You need to stay more in the background, of course, because you're a ghost producer, and you really need to sell yourself as a company.
One thing I would add to that is a lot of people just don't, they end up not liking it at all. So some people can just do ghost production and they enjoy it and they're not worried about the getting credit or getting fame. But you have a lot of producers who do ghost production to pay the bills and then they end up maybe being resentful or frustrated at the fact that they're making music for someone else and they're not getting the credit.
Yeah, they take the credits, exactly.
Yeah. Now, so if you're not like that, if you don't care, then it's awesome. You can build a good career out of it. But if you do eventually want to be an artist yourself, you just have to be aware that you may get frustrated. A good example actually is Ashley Warbridge, who is kind of in the trance scene. And he had, an artist career, and then he got into ghost production, did quite well. I think he owns like an Audi R8 or something. So, but then he came out saying something or making a video about the fact that he just hated doing ghost production, and he's gone back to doing his own thing now. So it's just something to be aware of, knowing yourself and knowing what you need and desire. And if you do desire an artist career, then ghost production may be something you do in the short term just to pay the bills, build your network, whatever.
Well,
I do think. Yeah, go ahead,
Joey.
Joey.
Something to that as well. Like you mentioned, it's a perfect way to pay the bills as well, because actually no one has to know it's you. You know, like you can put it into the agreement that you want complete anonymity. Is it a word? Yeah. That you want to be completely on the background, and that the one who bought your track, isn't able to talk about who produced the track. And then it's a perfect way to make a living and still be an artist yourself.
So I've got kind of a follow-up question to that. So let's just say somebody has pretty good production skills. They're interested in getting into ghost producing, but they don't know anyone. How do they get in touch with these people? Because I feel like there's a couple different ways. Like I've done a little bit myself. I'm sure you've seen plenty of different people getting into that scene, Joey. So how would you recommend, like, what are some good first steps for somebody that doesn't know anyone, but still wants to ghost produce, thinks it's a good decision for them?
I think one of the best ways to start is to start, you know, like it sounds really easy, but just start with making music for anyone else. Like if you send out a message on Facebook telling people in Facebook groups, like there's a lot of those big Facebook groups where there's a lot of producers gather all together. And if you put out messages there that you are a ghost producer, just start with doing that. And as soon as you have like a few releases and people start talking about it, that you're the one to go to, and you make a name, you know, you make a brand, people will come to you eventually. But I think the biggest key here is to just start and to just don't have too big expectations, as in it's not possible to create a ghost track for Chesto the first time, you know, like aim high, of course, but start at the highest point possible at that moment. I think that's, yeah, and networking, of course, like everything in the music industry, it's about networking. It's about who you are and who you know. So be everywhere. Be at parties, be at conferences, festivals, all those places. Shake hands. Tell people who you are. Tell people what you do. Because yeah, if you don't tell people what you do, they don't know.
Yeah. There's also a lot of DJs out there who, you know, like local town DJs who want to produce or want to release music, but they either too busy or too lazy and they don't want to learn how to produce. So those guys are perfect targets. And the way you connect with them and acquire them as clients is by going to club nights and by talking with them, and kind of you'll hear in the conversation, they'll be like, oh yeah, I want to get into music production. It's just a lot to do. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I can help you out with that.
Yeah.
And by the way, ghost production does not have to be this, like, you're doing all the work and like they're having no input. In a lot of cases, you know, it can be they're giving you some creative input and you're doing, you know, 80% of the heavy lifting, let's say. But they still have creative input. So that is another way to do it. And that happens a lot in the scene. Big name producers have technical guys in the studio to help them often.
Yeah.
Like
but it's not something to be ashamed of, you know, like if you have a look at Beyonce's album and have a look at the piece of paper that's in front, there's like 20 people working on one track.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just one thing that in the dance music industry, like EDM industry, a lot of people are still thinking that it's like a taboo, but it's just not a bad thing, you know, like you're not put up the world to do everything on your own. And you can be the best creatively, but not the best mixer or the best master. And that's also a possibility to just hire someone else and help you with it.
Another example is Alan Walker's song Faded. That's like, that had a lot of co-producers on it, which a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, man. I think if you dive into a lot of other tracks, you'll be amazed about what happened.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things is somebody that's done ghost production is it's a lot easier if you're doing the style that you want to do.
Yeah.
So if, you know, let's just say you're a trance producer and like kind of the market might be different for what all the people that want ghost produced tracks are, you'll have to kind of make that sacrifice. But if you're making something that's similar to what you want to be doing, it's going to be a lot easier going into it long term.
Yeah.
So somebody also, go ahead, Joey.
No, that's definitely true. But also keep in mind that if you want to become a dance producer or a ghost producer who also creates different kinds of genres, then you have more likability to be more successful in the future, because dance music may not be as successful as it is right now. I think it's one of his highest points ever. You know, like I'm not sure if it's gonna hold up this high for a long time. So yeah, prepare for hip hop, prepare for trap music, prepare for pop music. If you want to be a ghost producer your whole life, I think you have to be really wide in genres and not just focusing on one genre.
There's one more question on that, which was, are ghost producers typically paid per track or for royalties?
Depends on the deal that you make with the guy. Like it's really up to you. Normally, if I have a look in my environment, like people who do that, normally you keep the rights yourself. So royalties will be yours, and you get paid for the hours that you put into. So like a flat fee and the royalties as well. But it's just up to you to decide how you would like to have the deal. And of course, the party who's buying it, he needs to agree with it as well. But normally, like how I always see it, it's like 100% of the income is for the producer, and he also gets a flat fee.
Yeah, I wouldn't do royalties only. Like if someone comes to you and says, "I'll give you 100% of all the income," come on, you're not going to make that much from the song. So
no, unless it's a really big name, you know, then you could consider it. But if it's a big name, he also normally has like a big wallet, so I would try to get a flat fee as well.
Cool. So let me pull up this list of questions and see what else we had. So another one from Jocko was yearly goals was to go on tour with another performing artist in other countries. So I would kind of like to hear your guys' take on what must somebody know and what does it take to get to a point where you're able to be on a bill with another touring act? Like, let's just say you're supporting another big act on a nationwide or worldwide tour. So what would kind of be the steps that somebody needs to take to get to that point?
You can handle that, Joey.
Yeah, definitely. That could be networking. So just knowing the person who's headlining, you know, like knowing him really good, and he, like, what's the English word? I'm not really sure. He wants you to be in front, so he. No, I lost it. But like networking is really important. Like they need to be. Oh, he has a favor to you. You know, he wants to favor you to be in front of him, to play in front of him. And the other way around is to be signed to an agency who's also part where the headline act is also a part of, because normally sometimes they do package deals. You know that if they sell one headlining artist, they'll get like 1 or 2 warm-up DJs as well for like a low price or whatsoever. But I think the best chance is to network.
I agree. Nothing to add there.
I think look at what touring artists bring as their opening acts. A lot of the time it's like a smaller act their label. Like, for example, San Holo on his most recent tour had Drolo as their opening act. So it's one of their friends that's also signed to the same management agency as them. So that's how the relationship works.
Similar style as well.
Totally. Cool. Anything else on that, guys?
Yeah, like you said, like normally it's just one of their friends or someone they collabed with, or someone they know from parties or from their agency they're signed with, or it's just networking in every way possible. And the closer you get to the person privately, I think the more favor it's becoming. In my best English.
Awesome. So I've got a question from Kelsey, who she had a couple of them. One of them was she's got multiple different projects that she's had in the works. She hasn't launched any of them. Know which project she should launch. Should she do them together, or should she combine them? So what would you say if somebody's like, hey, I've got 3 different styles, 3 different projects. What should I do? Should I launch them all? Just do one, combine them? I feel like there's a lot of ways we can go with this one.
It's three different names, 3 different brands, three different projects.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna burn yourself out pretty quick.
Yeah, you know, I would just focus on one thing. You know, like if you're going into 3 projects at the same time, you're half pregnant, and that's just really hard to do.
Yeah. Focus on one. As hard as it is.
yeah, I would just follow your heart, you know, like your body and mind is probably telling you what you think is the best record or the thing that you feel most comfortable with. Take that and try to build that to a next level. And once you're at the next level or at the higher level, it's up to you to decide like, okay, now I've got some spare time and I feel like I know how this industry is working, and I can launch the second project. But if you go all in at once, I think that's going to be really hard.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think in most cases where it's, first of all, it seems like most side projects or like second aliases just don't work that well.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen, sometimes they do, but like I'm all about focus. I think it's better to do one thing really well and double down on one thing than try to do two things.
Yeah.
One thing that might happen though,
mm-hmm.
Kelsey, if you do go and commit to the one project, at some point pretty early on, you may feel like, oh, what if I had done this one or this one? Like it may have been better. There's no point thinking like that. Just set your eyes forward and keep going, because it's really easy to look back and kind of like doubt yourself and think that, oh, maybe I launched the wrong one because it's not doing that well. Be patient, work hard, and you'll get results.
Yeah, and on the other hand, you can still really focus on one project and on one brand and still focus on your tracks there. But some producers or artists need like creative input by creating something different every now and then to get that creative juices going. If you really need that as a producer, I would recommend to just still focus on one project. But if you still have other music laying around, you know, like if there's something stacked up, like 5 tracks from your alias name, just release it yourself through TuneCore or DistroKid or whatsoever and put it out there, you know, like maybe someone picks it up, maybe someone puts it in a big playlist, you never know, and maybe you make some money out of it, you never know, but as long as it's on your computer, you don't have any chance. But just don't spend too much time on it, just put it out there, make the track, produce it, put it out there, and let it rest.
I feel like most of the people that I hear this question coming from have like their mainstream kind of more like up-tempo project, like DJ friendly project that they have where it's more like down-tempo, ambient, kind of chill music. So they're like, hey, I make this like up-tempo stuff, but I also sometimes like to make chill music.
Yeah.
But like just because you're making that more chill music doesn't mean you have to like launch this whole project behind it. Just like throw it up on SoundCloud, call it a day, because you know, just getting the music to a point where people want to listen to it is just one step. There's so many more aspects to building a brand. So it's okay to make music that isn't the same style as your brand. You don't have to necessarily release that. If, you know, that's what you're feeling at the time, that's cool.
Yeah, and what probably a lot of people don't know is that I have an alias myself as well, which I've already have like for like 4 or 5 years. I've been releasing music under my alias called Icus, which is Suki in backwards. Which is actually doing pretty well. It's like chill music, really down-tempo music. But one of those tracks really did well on Spotify. It got released on The Bearded Man, on Armada. But I just never mentioned it, you know? Like, I just put it out there and didn't spend any time on the marketing or didn't spend any time on the promotion of the tracks. I just put it out there and see what happened. And I ended up, like, yeah, earning earning some money on those tracks. But it just really helped me getting my creative juices going in the studio to produce something different every now and then.
Anything else on that, guys?
I think we're good.
No. Yeah, we're good.
Awesome. So we've got a question from the live chat, and Ankush asks, what's the possibility of making a living from making original music as opposed to commercial music? And how would you approach this road from scratch?
Depends on what you mean when you say like original music, you know, like every record you put out there is original as long as it doesn't like, how do you say it in English, man? If you didn't steal it, as long as you did. As long as you didn't steal a melody or whatsoever, it's original.
Yeah. I kind of think it's a false dichotomy, because like you can make commercial music that is original, So that's one thing people say, like, top 40 music isn't original. It's like, well, actually, a lot of it is. It's like sounds that haven't been heard before, or it's certain ways of doing things, but people assume just because it's pop music that it's not original. So I think that's a false dichotomy. But like, to take your question, what is the possibility of making a living from original music as opposed to, let's say, you're just trying to make pop music? Maybe you want to make techno or trance or something. I don't think it's necessarily more difficult because you could argue that if you make pop music, there's a bigger market, which is true. And so there might be a bigger cap for income. You might be able to make more money there. I would agree with that. But you're also up against a lot more people. So if you are trying to make it as a techno artist or a trance artist, yes, there's less of a demand for that kind of music, but there's also less people making it. And so I think it kind of balances out in that sense. And if you're trying to make top 40 music, you are up against a lot of people.
Yeah,
hard.
Yeah, I totally agree with Sam. And always keep in the back of your mind that it doesn't matter which kind of genre you create. You just have to be the best to be at the highest point of the scene. Like if you want to make money, techno music, pop music, or whatsoever, you still have to be on the top of the industry, because otherwise you will never make money. The only thing is that if you make pop music, I think it's easier to make money, because even like the mediocre DJs still make a decent income, like they still make like a 3,000, 5,000 income, which is pretty nice, of course. But it's not comparable to the millions everyone's aiming for, of course. But it's still a decent living, like it's still a job. It's still, you make a living out of your hobby. So
Good point.
I think a little bit what he was asking in that question too is, to what extent should I kind of chase the genres that are a little bit more commercially successful right now, like whatever, like future bass, trap here in like the US, those are kind of the more hot genres, versus something that he wants to do a little bit more. I think that's a little bit what he was going for. You can respond in the comments too.
I would always follow the thing that I would like to create myself, because if you create something that you would like to create yourself the most, it will always be the best product.
Yeah, and you won't get disillusioned.
Yeah, and music is emotion. There's more to programming. It's like it's a feeling, and that's not something you can fake. As in, if something comes out of your heart, that's just the best.
One thing I think you can do is actually, to go back. I was talking to Monoverse trance artist Santos for the podcast the other day. It's not up yet, but it will be. And he said this. I was like, he's been making trance music for 9 years, and he just played Tomorrowland and where else? Luminosity Beach Festival in Amsterdam. And I was like, have you ever thought, or have you ever been tempted to make something else, like a different kind of genre? He's like, I do. I don't release it. Like, I just make it for creative purposes. But I know that if I didn't make trance or some variation of that, like I would eventually just get depressed and give up, because that's where my passion is. So that's one thing to think about. At the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong. In fact, it can be beneficial to take ideas from a certain trend. So you've seen this happen with like future bass, and now some house producers are inserting elements from future bass into house tracks, and they do really well because people are familiar with that sound, and it has a lot of commercial potential. So I think you can do that as well, but you should always be thinking as an artist on how you can innovate on what's current. Most people won't innovate because it's risky, and because there's a lot of potential of people saying this sucks. But if you look at the people who do innovate, like Skrillex, plenty of others, even the Chainsmokers to some extent, they pioneer trends. Like they have kind of stepped out and taken a risk, and it's pulled off. So don't be afraid of doing that.
Agreed.
So we've got a two-part question from Darren O'Brien. And his first question was, how long do you normally work on a track for? I find myself, as I start a new track, I gradually keep changing and remaking certain parts in relation to my internal reference point. So I guess part of what he's talking about is like, how long should I be spending on one track, and kind of what is a good way? Is there like any way that I can be like, oh, I've worked on this track too long, I need to just get rid of it?
Yeah, sure. So I think it really depends on how far along you are as a producer. Like when I talk to new producers and they tell me that they've spent months on a song, I just think, wow, like stop it. Just tomorrow when you wake up, make a song and then finish it, you know, because when you do that as a newer producer, you're really slowing your learning down. I mean, this isn't just opinion. Like there have been studies done on this, and the quantity of work is what will increase your learning, especially early on. As for spending, is there a certain time point where you've spent too long on a track? I don't think there's any concrete rule, and I think it depends on genre as well. For instance, like Hardwell might spend, I know Spaceman was produced in like 4 hours. Am I correct?
Yeah, it could be. You know, like the biggest tracks on Earth has been created in like a few hours, and I think
at least for my ideas.
Yeah, and I think that's because in the end it's all about the creativity, and we all know that feeling when you go into the studio and things just work out. You know, like you're on a roll and you're good to go. And that's the moment where you should keep on going and don't spend any time on the mixing or the mastering or all those things you can do afterwards, you know, like just spend time on the melodies, the arrangement, like shaping sounds maybe even, but just get out all the creativity, because I think the best songs are just really simple.
But then if you, like, I think you should have the ideas down within the first, 5 to 8 hours or 3 to 8 hours. That seems to be the case with a lot of people. But then if you have someone like a BT or a Maddie on, like those guys spend upwards of 60 hours on a song.
But those are really complex songs.
Exactly. So that's why I said it depends on genre. But I would, it's a hard question to answer.
I would like to continue on the thing that you said, like the rule thing. It's a really important thing, because people really need to understand that making music, there are no rules, you know, like it's really up to you what you would like to do. If you need 20 hours to finish a track, take those 20 hours. If you need 5 hours to finish a track, take those 5 hours. It just really depends on what you are looking for personally, what your audience is looking for, what genre you're creating, how good you are with your material, with your hardware, with your software. How good your knowledge is. It just depends on too much things.
Yeah. One thing I would add to this is there's an opportunity cost involved in working on a track too long. So what can happen sometimes, often in fact, is let's say you spend 8 hours on a song and it's like 80% done. So it's mostly finished. And then you start tweaking things and tweaking things and tweaking things, and then you start going around in circles and you start doubting and you start thinking, maybe I should use a different sound here. And what ends up happening is you don't actually improve the song. You just muck around for like hours, and then you get up to 20 hours and so on. Now, one thing to think about is maybe if you got to 80% and then you said, okay, I'm done, finished, let's put this aside and started something new, you would, that might be the next good track that you produce or whatever, but you're using your time more wisely. Instead of spending 8 hours tweaking stuff, you're saying, I'll finish this, I'll start the next one. The next one's going to be incrementally better than your last one because you've learned something, and then so on and so on. So don't be afraid to just like get to 80 or 90%, go, this is pretty much done. Like there's something missing, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe I'll spend another hour on it, but don't spend like 5 more days just tweaking stuff. No. That's a lot of lost time that you could be spending on something else.
True. And that's also the reason why I always advise people to go to a mastering company, because a lot of people spend like 2 days mixing and mastering their track while they could spend that time working on a new track, you know, and just hire a company who mix and master it for you, because it's a different kind of story from producing music. Actually, it's a completely different profession. And if you still suck at mixing and mastering, don't worry, you know, like it's really, really hard to become a good masterer. Besides having the knowledge, you also need a really good room, and you need good speakers and all those things. So don't feel bad about if you have a track ready but it sounds not that well, it needs to be mixed and it needs to be mastered. Don't be ashamed if you hire someone, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. There's kind of it's kind of like taboo or frowned upon to get a mixing engineer to help you out as a producer. I have no idea why. Like, I think it's this whole mindset of you have to do everything as a producer. Like, you have to design your own sounds, mix everything. Again, some of people, like some of your favorite artists, I guarantee, if you're watching this, get their tracks mixed down by someone else.
I think 80 to 90% do it.
Yeah.
I only know, I think I only know 3 guys who do it themselves. Yeah.
And normally they're super talented and they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like San Holo masters his own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he is like a genius. At least he used to.
I think Tim does it now.
Does it?
It's a collaborative effort for like all those guys. Like, I was working at Heroic when Light was being worked on, and they spent months trying to get just the actual song right, like getting the master right is part of it. Which I think is something good for people to realize, that like you're like, oh my god, that new Flume album sounds phenomenal. Like, he's a really good producer, and they had a lot of people that had their hands on that record too.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just kind of summing up what you guys were talking about as far as like how long should you spend on a track, I think it's different for every person. Like, you have like Porter Robinson, who'll spend 80 hours on a track. For most people, that doesn't work. You just have to figure out what works for yourself. Il Gates has something that he calls the production guillotine, where he's like, if I've worked every time that I start a new track, I've got a guillotine, and at 10 hours, I'm done. So I need to fit everything within those 10 hours. And you don't have to be too steadfast on it, but I think that's a good way to think about it, to be like, okay, I need to stop messing around and just tweaking things endlessly forever. I've got 10 hours to finish this track.
Just set a deadline for yourself.
I like that. Cool. So we've got one question, which a couple of people were interested in, from Colony. So he says, I've shared the stage with some of the biggest acts in the world, but I live in a country with zero infrastructure for building a career in EDM. So he asks, how do you go about finding a booking agent? And I want to get to that in a second, but he lives in Trinidad and Tobago. I've talked to him a little bit. So what would you say to somebody that lives where there's nothing for EDM? Like, there's just, Sam, I know you're a good example of this, where you originally grew up, but what would you say if somebody's like, I really want to make a career in this, but I live in somewhere that just doesn't have an industry for it?
I think we're living in 2017, you know, like you have the internet. Like, there is no excuse of being in a local town where things aren't possible. If you create music and you put it out there, it's available for the whole world. To give an example, like the first international tour I got it because of a release, and because it got on Beatport, and because it performed well, I got a first tour. And that's something you can do from everywhere around the world, you know. As long as you can create music and you put it out there, it's possible to get booked. It's possible to find labels. It's all on the mouse clicks and on your keyboard. It's at your fingertips, actually. So I don't think living in a small town isn't a big deal nowadays anymore. Of course it has been, but I think internet has changed the game.
I agree. I think one way to think about this is, first of all, has it happened in the past that someone from a small town where there's no infrastructure has made it big time? And if that's true, then it's like, okay, how do I do that? Or what steps do they take? And then so the question becomes, and it is true, by the way, it's happened many times. So then the question becomes, well, is it better for me to continue living here or to move to like LA? And that's a valid question, but there are also consequences to doing that. So I have a friend called John who lives in Thailand, And we had this conversation because he's trying to make it as an artist. He's doing it full time. Wow, he's got a business that supports him. And we were talking a while back. He's like, I could move to LA, but I've only been doing this for like a year and a half. And I feel like if I move to LA, I'd be able to network better. But there's also a lot more competition there. And also, Thailand is kind of growing as a scene. Like the EDM scene is growing.
Yeah, easier.
It's also going to be a lot more expensive there, which means I have to spend more time on my business to get the revenue up so I can spend time on music. And so there's all these things you have to consider. And so in your case, it might be that, moving country is a good decision. But maybe that's just not feasible. If it's not feasible, don't let it affect you in the sense that, like, don't start thinking, the reason I'm not doing well is because I'm living here. Like Joey said, the internet exists.
Exactly. That's not like the key to success. If you move, it's not doesn't necessarily. Wow. If you move, it doesn't necessarily has to mean that you become successful instantly. You still have to do the work. You still have to do the same thing, but might happen that you get triggered faster, or you learn get to know people easier, or it makes things easier. Could make things easier, but it's still hard.
It is. The other thing is, like, I live in New Zealand and we're at the bottom of the world, and like no one knows about us. We kind of just say, New Zealand, it's a nice country, but they live in huts and they don't have power. But EDMProd was built like completely on the internet. I have very few customers in New Zealand, like no business partners, no employees. Like,
I want to cuddle you right now. Come here.
Man, it's so lonely, Joey.
It's lonely at the top, Sam.
But it's beautiful, man. Look at this. It's like a golf course out there. Oh, it's so nice.
No, but to get back to the question, like, I honestly believe that that moving to another city or whatsoever really isn't the key to success. It's really up to you, and you have the internet. You have access to everything. You have access to the world. It's just the plan you have and the things you do to reach it, But it's really possible from everywhere.
Yeah, I think it depends whether or not you have like a plan. Like, I used to live in Los Angeles, and I went out there specifically for music, and that came from all across the country and from the world to Los Angeles. And like Sam was kind of saying earlier, like, it costs more expensive to live there, and there's a million other people doing exactly what you want to do. Like, if your favorite record label or like, the promoters and booking agents are out there, it might be helpful if you're doing that. Not necessary. Like, I had a friend that was trying to break out in his small town in Idaho, and then he was like, I'm going to go to LA. Well, now there's 100 times the amount of people trying to break out. So he's like, I'm going to go back to my hometown, blow up there, and then be the biggest name in my hometown, and then kind of branch out from there.
Yeah, it's all about your plan, actually. Like, I have a client from America, and he asked me the same. He's from New York, and he said, like, there's so many competition here. I'm not sure how I stand out of the crowd here. And he asked me, like, is it a good idea to come over and visit Amsterdam Dance Event for just a week, which is a pretty big investment, actually. But during that week, everyone from all over the world is at one spot, at just 1 square kilometer. And he told me that was the best investment he ever done, because he met so many people, he arranged so many things, he met with labels, publisher, managers, bookers. So that's also an option for you to do. Like, if you think the networking is blocking you, that's an option too, to just invest once or twice a year and visit another city where a conference is. So Miami Music Conference, Amsterdam Dance Event, maybe visit a school here in Holland, or that's also a great option, and it's way cheaper and way easier.
Yeah, I can totally confirm that. Like, went to AD in 2015.
Yeah, you've done the same, man.
Yeah, and it was phenomenal, and it was expensive, especially coming from NZ, but well worth it. So that's something you can do for sure.
Yeah, and it's like a $2,000 to $5,000 investment, I think. something like that, depending on where you're from and depending on what kind of hotel you want. But overall, it's way cheaper than moving and way easier to move.
Exactly, yeah.
I think you can also think about how you can use that to your advantage as well. No infrastructure, that means there's probably not too much competition in your city. Sure. Like, for example, I forgot the name of it, but an extremely big was originally from Colombia, and Colombia is kind of like one of the hotbeds for Latin American music. So he went to Puerto Rico, where there was less of a market and it was a little bit cheaper to break out. So you like went to Puerto Rico, established, became like the hot act in Puerto Rico, and then kind of was able to come back to Colombia after that. So use that to your advantage. You know, maybe you can start setting up your own shows. I don't know, just think outside the box about a way that you can use that to your advantage outside.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. So I've got a question from Martin. Is it a good thing to set high short-term goals or low short-term goals, if preferable? So I think, should you set or more easy short-term goals?
In my opinion, I think it's better to do easy short-term goals and a high-end goal, I think.
I think it depends. Because first of all, it depends on your level of discipline and ability to self-manage. Like if, let's say, you know, you're just generally unmotivated and not a very disciplined person, if you set a high goal straight away, it will ruin you and you won't be able to achieve it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I would think like putting a lower goal for short term, because it's easier to get, and then you get motivated because you make steps, you know, like you get forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would err on the side of easier, just because you want to build momentum and discipline, and it's a lot easier to do the following. So if you it's easier to do this. Setting a low goal that's easy and achievable, and then building it up from there. So maybe your goal is just to make like one song every 2 weeks. And that's easy for you. And so you're doing it. And then you're like, you know what? I could probably make one song every 10 days. And so you do that, and then you slowly speed it up. That's a lot easier than going, I'm going to make 2 songs a week, and then really burning yourself out and going, you know what? This is too hard. I'm going to lower it down to 1 song a week. I think it's easier to go from that low point to the high point, and from the high point and then going, oh no, like I have to adjust.
Yeah.
Because then you kind of feel like a failure if you do that, if you go from here to here.
Exactly. And that's why I would motivate for the low. I think it's all about motivating yourself and triggering yourself to see that you're able to do it, and that you're capable of doing so many things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So we've got one question from earlier, and it's from SPAYV. And he says, hi guys, I get stuck when I'm trying to detect my own vision and mission. He's a little bit too narcissistic, and he's asking what to do. So what if somebody sat down and all week they've been thinking about what do I want to do with my career, but they can't necessarily figure out? Do you have any ways that you could help them kind of get to that point?
I didn't really get the question because the connection wasn't that good.
Yeah.
You too? Yeah, it's a little bit blurry.
Okay, so I can post it in the comments too, but essentially he was asking is he's trying to figure out what his vision is, but he's not able to do it. He's a little bit narcissistic, and he's wondering what he should do. Let's just say he spent all week trying to figure out what his vision is. He can't figure it out. What kind of advice would you give him?
So there is a supplementary lesson about this, actually. What do I do if I'm not sure how to create a vision? And in that video, if you watch it, you may have, but again, just to reiterate, it's instead of crafting like a massive vision and mission, just start at the smallest step, which is putting a system in place, and work from there. And over time, you'll start to figure out more of what you want. So I would just really simplify it and say, you know what, I'm just going to make 1 song a month or 1 song a week. And the way I'm going to do that is by producing for 1 to 2 hours a day. And you just do that. And don't worry for at least a couple of months. Just don't worry about your vision, your mission. just make music, and then kind of revisit it. I think in those cases, it's best to just simplify it and lower it a bit, because, yeah, you don't, like, I've been there, and you can't always create a vision without further information. So I would say that. I'm not sure what he means by a little bit narcissistic, though.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know how that comes into it.
Not sure either. So you guys done on that, or?
It's a bit laggy.
Yeah.
Cool. So you guys get on that question then?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a couple questions related to the idea of a flow state in the studio. So I'll read the one from Darren, but we had another person who said something similar, which was, any specific tips for staying focused during those days when you're distracted or tired or procrastinating, but you're not making the most out of the time that you've scheduled? Sam, I'm sure you have nothing to say on this.
I've got so much to say on this.
He's been waiting for this question all the time. I can
Yeah.
tell.
He's ready for it.
So it's like you set up 2 hours in the studio.
No, I'm not thinking. So flow states and motivating yourself to work. I'll answer the motivation one and then the flow state one. A few minutes. There is no little hack or secret or trick when it comes to just you're not feeling motivated, you're not feeling it. Here's what you should do, and it gets easier the more you do it. But I'm not going to pretend or lie to you and tell you there's some secret hack, because there's not. Get your phone, your mobile phone, turn it off, or if you're a very important person, like you're a paramedic or whatever, and you need to have it on, make sure it's on do not disturb mode, and you can only allow calls from certain people. Put it in another room or like at the far end of your house, and then make a cup of coffee, and then open up your laptop, turn the internet off, open up your DAW, and then set a timer on something. Hopefully you have an external timer. I'd recommend that. And just commit to 15 minutes. And if you can't do 15 minutes, 5. But commit to a certain amount of time. In fact, make it 5 minutes, because you'll get to 5 minutes and you'll go, oh, this is I can keep doing this, it's fine. Normally the issue is it's just the starting. Like you'll procrastinate so much, you'll delay that starting point. So you just want to start. Now, the more you do that, when you make that decision to work and just commit, you develop your willpower and you grow that. So it becomes easier over time. Now, getting into flow states, there's a few things that contribute to it, and it's hard to tell what exactly that is, because it's kind of pseudoscience. Like, it's not a well-researched field. And you can't achieve it, or you can't guarantee it. That's the other thing. But there are a few things that contribute. The first is the work needs to be challenging, but not too difficult. So if you're doing something too easy, like let's say you're just organizing sample folders, I mean, that's not going to get you into flow state, just because it's not intellectually or mentally demanding enough. But if you're trying to make like a very hard genre, or like do a very hard thing in production, you're also unlikely to get into a flow state, because it's too hard, it's too consuming, it's too draining. So it's kind of that middle point between those, where it's challenging enough to keep you engaged, but you also feel confident in what you're doing. The second thing is no distractions. They will pull you out of flow state better than anything else. So if your phone goes, it vibrates or whatever, you will be pulled out of a flow state, whether you check it or not. Because you might think, oh, if I don't check it, I'll be fine. But it's distracted you, it's pulled you out. And I'd say the other thing is like having a good amount of time, because it does take time to get into that zone. Roughly, I would say 30 to 45 minutes. And so you want to make sure you have around 90 minutes to 2 hours or more. Because if it takes you 45 minutes to get into the zone, at that point is when like the real work begins. And that's where you get a lot of stuff done. And so if you've set a timer for an hour, and you get in the zone at 45 minutes, that's like 15 minutes of work. It's not a huge amount. So that's what I would say. I hope that makes sense.
I can definitely agree with that. As in, I even know producers who disconnected their entire studio. As in, there's no internet available in their studio. And I even know one guy who built a studio so tight with material that there's no, how do you say it? Like no signal. So your phone isn't able to connect with the network, and you don't get any Wi-Fi. But it works, you know.
Yeah.
I think people really underestimate the power of notifications, as in a notification can fuck everything up, actually.
Yeah, that's like I've disabled notifications on my phone completely.
Yeah, like I was just having a look, like, I'm not sure if you see, but it's that little thing.
Yep. Yeah.
The little moon, it's like genius.
You've been listening to Tony Robbins, Joey?
No.
It popped up on the thing.
Yeah, it's here. The podcast.
Nice.
It's a good podcast, man. I can recommend it to anyone.
Nice.
But notifications, turn down all the notifications, and that's the same on your phone as well. If you go into settings, there's this this part which is called I'm not sure what it is in English. Is it called messaging? Or I think it's notifications actually. Yeah, and you can change every app you have on your phone and adjust every notification signal you get from it. I just turn everything down like you did, Sam.
One app that I got recently is called Forest. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh, dude, that is the.
What's that?
So essentially, you're like, it's called Forest. So you can be like, hey, I want to work on music for 30 minutes. So you plant a tree.
It's so sick.
You have to make it the full time in order to get the tree. And once the tree's there, it's planted. And if you like get a text and open up the text, if you close the app at all, it kills the tree.
Yeah.
Dead trees. Like I've got a little dead tree there because I got a text message.
Okay, that's a nice one.
It's like,
it's fun.
You don't have to have that app, but it helps me be like, okay, I am planning on going down for 30 minutes. It helps me commit to it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then my phone's my worst distraction. I still have my like, but it helps me a little bit more. Just like stupid little triggers like that. Like, and it's on, you still might be checking it, but if your phone's all the way off, you're like, I have a problem, and then you're going to go back to making music.
Yeah, exactly.
A good book to read on this before we move on to the next thing is Deep Work by Cal Newport, which I've recommended like 1,000 times. It is such a good book.
Cool. So let's go over one more question, and then maybe we can dive into going over one of the actual artist plans. But a couple different people asked, and this isn't necessarily related to what we're talking about this this module, but a couple different people asked, when is my music finished? Like, when is it good enough to be released to labels? I feel like this is a pretty quick question to answer, but a couple of people asked it, so thought we might as well go over it.
I think that's really something to decide for yourself. But I think as soon as you be aware of the fact that you're mixing a hi-hat for like 2 hours, that's the moment where your track is finished and say like, okay, that's it. I'm just gonna end this project, and I'm gonna continue with a new one. But it's it's really hard to. It's really personal.
Yeah.
And you just have to be you really have to be aware of what's happening with the track, and that you're not overthinking everything. But it's just all in your head, like it's really hard to explain.
There is
if you're able to do it, Sam.
Yeah, it is a subjective thing, but I think in one sense the answer is it's not finished, because there's always something you could do. But at the same, I don't think there's anything wrong with being systematic about it. And we've got a song finishing checklist. Actually, we should post that in the Build Your Artist Career group. But it's just
somebody just posted it.
I did that.
Somebody just posted it in the comments before that.
Yeah, we can post the file in the group. It's just a PDF, but it's like just a list of questions that if you go through and you can answer yes to them, then it's probably finished, or more or less. So using something like that can be helpful, just to help you finish and also guarantee like a more consistent quality across your releases?
I think one of the many reasons why people keep deciding that their track isn't finished is simply fear, because they're afraid of the fact what other people are going to think of the track. And that's just a state of mind that you have to change. Like, you really have to, don't care about what the rest thinks about your track. It's your track, it's your baby, it's your product, it's your thing, you know, like everything you've produced, everything you've put in the track is your choice, has been your choice. So really be aware of the fact that, don't be afraid that what other people will think of your track. If you like it, it's okay.
All set on that one?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to post a actual artist plan that one of our students sent us. And I'm posting it in the YouTube group too, if you guys want to just pull it up yourself in case the connection's not too good.
I've got it right in front of me.
This is from Colony. So I think a good place to start might be with his 5-year, 3-year, 1-year, and quarterly goals, because I think those were pretty fundamentally sound, the best that I've received so far. So I don't know how you guys want to take this. You can kind of like read them out loud, go over them, give your thoughts.
Are we going to treat the goals like the 5-year goals? Do you want to start with the 5-year goals?
Yeah, I'm just like interested to hear what you guys think about that. Your feedback. Do you think those are realistic, unrealistic, and what kind of advice will you offer him afterwards?
Cool. Let's start with the 5-year goals, which is be the head of my own record label. And the second goal is be featured on at least 10 major music festivals in the world per year. At least 10 major music per year. 5-year goal. Okay. Being head of your own record label in 5 years is definitely possible, but it's something that you have to gonna start with right away, actually. But it does depend on what you mean with a record label, you know, like, do you want it to be a really successful record label? Because anyone can start a record label at this moment. If you want a record label, you'll have a record label tomorrow. So that's not really. If that's the case, you know, like if it's just starting a record label, that's not hard at all because it's really easy. But if you really want to run a company, as in a record label releasing a lot of music, maybe even throwing parties, maybe host your own stage at a festival, that's a bigger goal. So if that's what he means, it's a good goal. And if he just means being a boss of his label, that's easy to get. So I would throw that into a quarter goal.
One thing, just to add to that, the label thing, one thing to think about is if you care about one or the other more, because I think, you know, just looking at your vision a little bit, you care about the healing power of music, you know, making and playing music, expecting. So I do care about making music, but then, I don't know, maybe it's like, if you built a label and just focused on that, or like put more of your effort towards that, you could build a really awesome thing, which might be harder to do if you're touring as well. Often big time artists who have labels attached to them are run by someone else. Like correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, but Hardwell doesn't like manage Revealed. Like, he's not in there 8 hours a day, like making sure all the moving parts are going. He's not doing that. Someone else is.
He has a label manager, and he is just head of the label, as in he's owner and of course the face of the label. But
yeah, that's that. Yeah.
Sorry?
And it's fine. Like if what's his name? Colony. Like if that's what he means, being the face and head, yeah, that can definitely be done.
Yeah, exactly. But it really depends on what he means with running his own label, you know? Like, I run my label as well, but it's not that much of a deal, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really depending. But being featured on at least 10 major music festivals in the world per year, 5 years, of course, it's possible. Definitely. You just really need to work really hard. But it's possible. I've done it myself, I think. Yeah, I've done it myself. Like, if I have to look back at my career, I think it took me 4 to 5 years to become from a beginning producer to someone who played at like at least 10 major festivals a year. So yeah, it's doable.
Totally. Yep. Awesome. Great goals. I love
goals.
this.
Play at least 3 major music festivals. Yeah, that's nice as well. Building up to the 5-year goals. Touring regularly, 3 years. That's doable. All of my releases exceed 100K plays. That's also a smart goal, to think in plays. 1-year goal is make a minimum of $2,000 a month from all music-related activities. 1-year goal.
I just want to note on that for a moment. I set goals like that, like the same kind of thing.
Which one? The $2,000
like,
one? Or?
Yeah, but you have to just define whether that's like, do you achieve that goal if you make $2,000 one month, or are you talking consecutive months? Because you can make $2,000 and then make nothing the next month, and it's like, wow, is that achieving my goal? One thing I like to do is make a minimum of, say, $2,000 a month for 3 consecutive months.
I would take like $24,000 a year. Like in the first year, you would like to make $24,000 a year.
That's one way to do it, yeah. And then I suppose you can average it out, yeah.
Yeah, which relates to $2,000 a month, but you still have a bigger aim, actually.
Good point.
Play at least 5 shows abroad. Yeah, I think those are great goals. Like he tears every goal down into smaller steps. Like
yeah, that's really
as an example, his main goal is 10 major music festivals. Then it's 3 major music festivals, and then he goes to 5 shows abroad. Does he have anyone else with the quarter? No. So he just tears them down, and I think that's a really smart move.
100%.
I think one more thing to think about that I kind of mentioned to him in an email chain between us is his quarterly goals are to like finish music, and then the yearly goals just above that plays on the music. So I think figuring out how you're going to get in between those two. So not just being like, oh, I'm going to put the music out there, like having 50K is a good goal, but having a system in place under that where you're like, I'm positive or at least pretty sure that I'm going to get that. Because, obviously getting the music finished and quality is one point, but being able to get it on that next step is really what will take you to those yearly goals, which are necessary to build up.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cool. Any other general comments on his actionable artist plan? I really liked his strengths and weaknesses. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about that.
I'll dive into it right now. Strengths.
That's awesome that you've taken a year off. I mean, that's such an opportunity.
I think he has a lot of self-knowledge.
Definitely, yeah.
He knows where he is. He knows what he's capable of.
I felt like he was very honest with it too, as far as when he was talking about his weaknesses. He's like, I get distracted easily. I can get trapped in a loop sometimes that I don't feel like what I'm doing is worth anything. Because you kind of have to be honest with yourself if you want to be able to make a career in this.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that happens. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. It's hard, because like you got to be hard on yourself to some degree. That's how you get better. But at the same time, it can kind of go too far one way, and you just get in a negative mindset and you don't do anything.
Yeah, I actually heard a quote in the podcast today, which was failure plus feedback, or no, failure plus reflection is progress.
Pain plus reflection is progress. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that from Ray Dalio?
Yeah, I think he was a guest in the podcast. Yeah, he was a guest.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great way to think. Like if you know your weaknesses, you can only learn from it, and if you learn from your weaknesses, you make progress.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But this looks like a guy who knows where his strengths and weaknesses are. Definitely.
Yeah, this is awesome. Great work.
Cool. So I've got a couple more questions loaded up. If you guys have anything else in the live chat list right now. So Ankish just posted a question.
Sorry?
You must be tired.
No, man, it's like 10 o'clock here. I'm about to grab a wine.
I don't know how you do it.
So I've got a very tough question for you, Sam.
Okay.
Asim just asked, which productivity book do you think is the most conducive to making music? Example, Deep Work.
Deep Work. No, Deep Work definitely. But beyond that, there are a few that are helpful. I would say, this is a bit left of center, but Ego is the Enemy really helped with my productivity. Because it was kind of like, it just convicted me. It was like, wow, work is actually not sexy. And like, if you're talking about how much you work, you're probably not working that much. And here's this quote about like, it's such a great quote, but it's like, work is finding yourself indoors early in the morning, like on the track or whatever, you know, like working with no one else's, like that's it, you know, so that helped. And there's another one that helped as well. I just can't. I think Deep Work has had the most impact. Also, yeah, I mean, Ray Dalio's principles helped me just because it helped me think systematically about like setting goals and then how to get to those goals. And that can help with productivity because you start to realize, or you start to see the link between what you're doing and what you're going to achieve. And it's really hard to be productive when you're just working at something and you don't see the results of that work. That's why so many people in the corporate world aren't happy, because there's like layers and layers and layers of execs and managers and so on and so on. So the work they do, they never really see how it impacts the firm. So I'd say that's an important thing too. Otherwise, it's really easy to get tired or frustrated or wonder whether what you're actually doing is important.
Anything on that, Joey?
No, I actually totally agree with Sam, but I must confess that I've been only having a look at this kind of subject for about 2 years now. Since my burnout, I've been starting to take a deep dive into these kind of subjects, because before that, when I was a DJ and a producer, I didn't even know about strategies or plans or goals or nothing, you know. And since I've been working on those kind of systems, and I've been kind of reading those kind of books and listening to podcasts and learning more about myself, learning more about my brain, you know, like how does a human being work, it really helps me make my life way better and happier. And yeah, that's the only thing.
Awesome. So also thanks to Asim for putting the books that Sam mentioned in the live chat. Appreciate you doing that.
Oh, thanks, man.
So we've got another question, which was community of whatever genre you're going after. So how do you kind of break into that? So the example that he gave was the Calvin Harris style of EDM. So do you have any like general recommendations for breaking into a specific community within the?
I think this goes down to networking again. Like, you need to find the key persons in that genre, and you need to find persons that you're like, you can tear that plan down as well. You can have the key person. So let's say it's Calvin Harris, but that's almost impossible to get to him, you know, like it's really hard to get to him and tell him to give him your value actually. But maybe there's one or two persons beneath him that are possible to connect with at this moment. Maybe it's his manager, maybe it's a friend of his that you know. It could be anyone. But if you know someone closely to that person, it's smart for you to connect with that person and add value to their life. That's also a part which is in the course. Adding value to someone when you're networking is really important.
One thing I'd say is that Spotify is really smart.
True.
And if you want to break into a community of whatever genre you're going after, make that genre of music. Now, don't make the same music as the figurehead of that scene, because let's say you're trying to break into the Calvin Harris community. If you make music just like Calvin Harris, why on earth would people listen to you over Calvin Harris?
We already have a Calvin Harris.
Yeah, especially non-producers. Like, they're just going to hear the name Calvin Harris and go, oh, cool, he's got a new song out. But they won't care about you if you're nobody. Spotify will, however, and you might just pop up in someone's Discover Weekly playlist, and who knows where that can lead.
Awesome. Anything else on that, guys?
Yeah, and networking as well. I mean, we've got to look at that a lot in, next week. So,
yeah. That's a good general question. A lot of people had questions about both networking and getting their music heard.
Yeah.
So, module 2 is all about networking. Module 3 is getting your music heard. So we might touch on those later, but sure. Don't worry. We'll get into them in both the lessons and then also the Q&A if you guys still have questions. So one of the other questions from Cadence Music that we earlier, which was, is there a middle ground for an artist that music and shows without having to be a superstar DJ? Talked a little bit about this in our podcast that we did together.
For sure.
As far as like, there's still so much room in the industry if you're not one of those like top 100 DJ guys. So
yeah,
your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, you can. I'm sure Joe would agree with me. There are a lot of people out there who are making livable incomes, and they aren't superstars.
Yeah, definitely. Like I have a lot of clients who you don't know their names yet, but they still make a decent income, and they still make like 2,000 plus a month, which is okay, Like even when it's not a full-time job or when it's just your hobby, 2,000 a month is really nice. So you really have to think about what your goal is. Like, which are you going for the millions? Are you going for 10,000 euros a month? Are you going for 1,000 euros a month? Do you just want to be able to pay your bills or to go on a holiday every now and then? Yeah, whatever you agree with. And there's a lot of room for people to determine where they are. Like there's more level than just nobody and rockstar. There's a lot in between.
Yeah. 100%. And depending on where you live, you can also have an income just from your local scene. Like I do definitely think the days of DJs that don't produce are coming to an end, because it's way too easy to DJ now. Like it just is. And so you need an edge. But like I know people in New Zealand who just make money from the New Zealand market. And we're a small country.
I'll give you an example. When I was 16 years old, I played in my hometown. And I had like a residency. I played there 2 times a week, 5 hours a night. So 10 hours a week, 2 nights. And I got paid as a 16-year-old kid. I got paid 350 euros a week, which was 1,400 euros a month, which is like an average income here in the Netherlands. And I only played like 2 nights a week, and I earned the same money as someone who had to work all week long. It's crazy, but you have to see things in perspective. Like, of course, you don't get 1,000 euros an hour, but you do only work 2 nights a week. The rest is just off.
I know there's one guy that's taking this.
It is doable, and it's.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, so it is doable, and even if like Sam said, if it's local, every city, every village, they have like a bar or they have a disco or a club or whatsoever where you could play and where you can offer yourself. As long as you're a good DJ and if you offer some value to the club, you should be able to play there maybe.
So we've got one question from Inverted Pope. So the main question that he was asking is, first of all, how do you promote yourself if you have a more eclectic style of music? And he talked about only wanting to kind of make a income from selling music. So Ghost producing. General discussion on the different types of revenue streams for making music, for making money from music. are like, oh, I want to be able to make money and understand that there's different streams of revenue, but don't know what those are.
Yeah, let me tell you about what my revenues were. You've got your gigs, which is most of the time the biggest income, because that's the easiest way to make money, actually. Unless your tracks are doing really well, of course, it depends. But you can nowadays, with Spotify and YouTube and all those other streaming platforms, it becomes easier and easier to make money with streaming as well. But to me, it was gigs, music sales, a little bit of streaming, because I got a little bit of streaming as well. And the royalties from airplay, so radio airplay, that's a big one as well.
I think in terms of the sales, there are a few avenues you can go down. Ghost production we've talked about.
Oh, by the way, I forgot one important one. Remix requests. You can ask for a flat fee, and you can if you're getting bigger and bigger, the price is getting up and up. So that's becoming a big one as well.
You can also look into like just co-producing. So producing and you get credit on the track. It can work. If you're good at, say, mixing, you can do that for people as well. Plenty of artists out there who do that and make their living from mixing and so on and so on. And also like royalty-free music. So you can make jingles and sell them. If you have an eclectic taste and you want to make a lot of different styles of music, that could be a good avenue to go down. Competitive market, but if you crack it and you market well, you can make good money. That's passive income.
I even made radio jingles for companies who needed to have radio jingles. I just produced them, and I just asked for like €1,000 for just a 10-second, 15-second clip.
It would be cool if you made like a jingle and you ask for 5%, or even not more than that, like 20% royalties.
I don't think you get royalties on a jingle, actually.
You can.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, I'm pretty sure we have it's like Walmart, it's like big, it's like the equivalent. But a guy made a jingle for that. I think he negotiated royalties, and it's just like, it's a huge company. And when the ad gets played on TV, he gets some money.
Yeah, that could be nice too. I'm not sure if it's possible in Holland, but if that's a possibility, like even let's say you've made the intro clip, so the 10-15-second intro clip of FIFA.
Yeah.
That's big, man.
Respect, yeah.
Gaming music, movie music, all those things. It's all opportunities.
Definitely. Cool. Good question.
Awesome. So let's see what else we have. So one of them was, and this is another, which was, what key skills are required to be a music producer? It would seem that songwriting skills are the most important, but there's also some producers that are more heavily involved on the mixing side of things. So there's a lot of different ways we can tackle this question. So I think a lot of people struggle.
Which is really essential is being creative and knowing how to make melodies and stuff. The mixing and mastering part is something that you can hire. That's not something that has to be your own. It's not necessarily a part of the track which defines the track. It's just something that polishes the track. But in the end, it's all about the melody, the emotion, the feeling, which all comes from your creativity. So I think that's the most important thing you should have.
I've written an article on this, so you can just go read it.
Share it with us, Sam. Share it.
It's called 5 Hard to Develop Skills All Successful Producers Have. And I can't share it in the chat. It's not letting me, but yeah, there you go. Connor shared it, so you guys can read that when you have a chance. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Pulling up to see if we have any more questions. If I've missed a question that you guys put up above, just post it again. Apologize if I did that.
Yeah, we'll do a couple more, then we'll wrap up.
Any more questions, guys? There's a lot of you in there.
Yeah, don't be shy.
We don't bite. We're actually all over the world because we have one in the States, one in New Zealand, and one in the Netherlands. So
You got it covered.
yeah. Where are they posting the questions? Are they posting it on YouTube or?
Yeah, in the YouTube live chat.
Oh, okay.
We had one question that Kelsey sent me in earlier, which was she's interested in 3 things: film composing, touring, and ghost producing. I was wondering if it's possible to do these projects in tandem with each other.
You're glitching a bit. Sorry, what did you say, the 3 things?
Film composing, touring, and ghost producing.
Okay, I'm interested.
So Sam, I know you talked about this a little bit as far as experiments. Like you talked about living in the city. So I think that's a good way to go. Like she's not sure which, she likes all these 3 things. She's not sure which one she wants to do. What's the best way to do it? Can she do them all together?
I think if you're interested in them, well, first of all, I would say it's very hard to do all of those at once. And I would say it's unwise as well.
It all comes back to the focus part.
Yeah, so it's like figure out what you like the most. And I do talk about this in one of the lessons. So run many experiments. So, you know, do film composing for 3 months. And I know that sounds simplified, like, oh yeah, just go and do film composing, like go get a big studio and do it. No, like see if you can intern or just sit in at like a film studio and see how they do it and see what's involved. Because you might have like a misinformed idea of what film composing is. And you might get in there and go, okay, this looks really boring. Like I don't want to have a part of this. Same with touring, you know, like see if you can go along with someone and like pay your own way and travel with them, like a friend or something. And you'll see like the not so good side of it as well. And you'll get like a better idea of what touring actually involves, not just like what you see on the media. And then you might go, yeah, I don't really want that kind of life. Or you might be like, this is awesome, I want this.
Yeah, I think but it's everything in life, you know, it's trial and error. It's just try a lot of stuff and see what works for you, because you can't think about something that you would like and experience it, you know, like experiencing it is something different. If you experience something, then you instantly know like, okay, this is something that works for me, or this is something that doesn't really work for me. But that's not something you can decide from your living room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally agree.
Awesome. So Max327 asked a question earlier, which are, what are some realistic goals to set as a DJ if I currently have 0 DJ experience with minimal skill? So I was chatting with him. He's been producing since late 2012, is to be able to play music out in front of larger audiences. So he's been making music. You can post in the chat if you've been releasing. You know, what are the first steps for somebody that's never played any shows, has no experience DJing, and kind of wants to break into the scene as more of a producer?
I would offer yourself for free for the first few gigs. Just get your foot between the door at a local club or a local cafe, a local bar. Offer yourself for free and gain some experiences.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's what I did, but I also never made it big as a DJ, so I had a few gigs.
I did it as well, man. I started playing at people's home, actually, like birthday parties, wedding parties, all those things. Just gaining a lot of experiences. Then I started playing at local bars and cafes, like I mentioned. I played 10 hours a week, which is pretty much, actually. But actually, that was the moment in my life where I really learned how to play. And really, besides the DJing, you know, like everyone's able to control the CDJs. But the hardest part of being a DJ is your music selection. So which records are you going to play, and reading the room. And that's something you can only learn by doing it a lot.
Yeah, one thing I would say is play for free, but like don't do it for too long, because people may take
just a few times.
Like there are, like, let's be honest, there are club owners out there. Club owners aren't the most morally, like.
Let's hope there aren't any club promoters here.
I'm saying some of them. And like I've heard a lot of stories about people just not getting paid, and it's don't let yourself be walked over. That's what I'm saying.
No.
Like if you've been playing like 3 or 4 shows for free, it's time for you to be like, look, people are coming in, they're dancing, they're buying drinks.
Yeah.
I should be getting paid.
But in the beginning, the first few free gigs is just an investment in yourself, in your company, in your brand.
Yeah.
And like Sam said, if it works out for the club, and if you see, you pull it together, and people stay, people buy drinks, they make money on your back. Actually, that's the moment where you could say like, hey, maybe it's time to get a small fee, even if it's 50 euros or 100 euros, a small fee. Doesn't matter as long as it's something.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you can also figure out who are the promoters and who are the people that are booking for your local venues.
Mm-hmm.
Because like a lot, like when I was living in Los Angeles, like you could get an opening spot PM for like, you know, a bigger artist. Anyone could kind of walk in and get it at a side stage. So you start at like the side stage as kind of like a nothing DJ playing for 10 people at a different bar in the club. Your way up that hierarchy. So don't be afraid to start small, like they've kind of mentioned before. Start at like a birthday party, start at a bar, and then kind of be able to slowly work yourself up there. But that's a lot of networking, which we'll go over a little bit more next next module as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So we had one question from Cadence, which was, is there still a good way to share bootleg remixes? I feel a lot of producers have come up through bootlegs, but the days of posting them on SoundCloud without fear are pretty much done. And I think you guys can also talk about, like, is it worth doing bootleg remixes anymore?
I think bootlegs are still one of the best ways to build like a fan base, actually, especially when you give them away for free, because almost every DJ out there on the world is looking for bootlegs to play in a set. So it's a great way to gain some popularity, and as soon as you gain some popularity, then it's the best moment for you to release an original track. To me personally, I always like to work on bootlegs because you already have a starting point. It's really easy to create because you don't have to make up a melody, you don't have to create a vocal or an a cappella or whatsoever. It's all the ingredients are there. It's just switching them around and making your own version. So to me, it always is a win-win, and I always recommend people to start with it as soon as possible and do it as often as possible. But yeah, in terms of giving it away or how to give it away, I do like platforms such as Hyped It and stuff, because you don't, of course you give it away for free, but you get something in return as long as it's a Spotify follow or a playlist follow, which is really important nowadays, a playlist follow. Yeah, I don't really see it as a bad thing. In contrary, I really see it as a good thing.
I agree.
Thanks. I was expecting a long story.
Cool. So I've got nothing else as far as questions right now. So if you guys have any last ones that you want to put in.
Coffee time.
There's a few that I'm saving for next week. A couple people, like I mentioned earlier, had more networking questions, but I feel like it'd be better to kind of get those at a chunk, because a lot of the questions that people asked, like, and I feel like they'll be answered in.
Cool.
For sure. All right.
Cool, man.
Where you guys at? Come on.
Are we gonna do a countdown?
We'll take one more question if there is, and then we'll probably wrap it up around there. Oh, here we go.
So Darren asked, do you separate music, sound design, production, learning from music writing, or do you treat them more as a combined activity?
Personally, for me, I like to separate them, even though to some extent they are combined and you can't fully separate them. So I would, I think I answered this question once through email, but most of my time would go towards, especially if I was a new producer, go towards writing music, because that is going to be your best form of learning and applying stuff. And then you might put like 20% into theory or sound design or whatever. But I like to separate them largely just because it's a focus thing, and I think you learn better when you're just focusing on one thing, whether that's like a 2-hour sound design session or a 2-hour session learning music theory. Like, I just think that's a more effective way to learn, but also not always as enjoyable.
Could you repeat the question for me, please? I didn't get it.
Sure. It was, do you separate the like music, sound design, and production from the writing aspect, or do you kind of put it all into one?
I still didn't really get it. Could you paste it in the...
Yeah.
I'm interested in film composing, touring, and ghost producing. Help also. Oh wait, that's new. You already got that one, right?
That I just asked Sam.
You separate music, sound design, production.
In the meantime, Sam, do you want to talk a little bit more about the mini experiments? Because I know I mentioned that earlier, but kind of the like people that want to do a bunch of different stuff and like you won't know if you like it till you try it.
Yeah, for sure. So
we can go back to that question about the girl that liked film composing, music, and ghost producing.
So this isn't one of the lessons that I think it is in one of the week one's lessons, yeah. But the whole idea is that often we think we'll like something and then we'll make a massive commitment to it, which if we end up not liking it, incurs a cost. So let's say that you want to, you think that you might like living in the city. Well, what most people do is they sign like a 1-year lease and then they move to the city. Now that's a really bad decision if you don't actually enjoy living in the city. How do you know? Have you lived in the city before? If you haven't, then how do you know that you'll like it? So a better approach is to go, okay, let me just like rent an Airbnb for 2 weeks in the city. And yeah, maybe you pay a bit more. But then you can go through those 2 weeks and go, you know what, this has been really awesome. I think I'd enjoy living here. Or you might get to the end of 2 weeks and like you can't wait to be back out in the suburbs or out in the country again. So that's like a mini experiment. It's just a better way of thinking and living in life. And so when it comes to, say, picking what you want to do as an artist career, you can apply that same line of thinking or acting. So you might be like, well, I want to be a film composer. And so you create a mini experiment for that to see if you like it and for whatever else you want to do. And it basically just means that you're going to incur less of a cost, you're going to waste less time, and you're not going to be as disappointed.
Yeah, this all goes back to the trial and error story. So just try as much things as possible, and you'll instantly notice what you really like to do, and what you're best in actually, and what feels most natural to you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it's trial and error on like a smaller scale so that you don't make massive mistakes. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else, guys? If I missed your question, like I said, I apologize. There's a lot to keep up with in the chat, but if you guys have any last ones, we still have some time left. No, we've got to have someone there.
Maybe they're just done.
Yeah, I mean, we can wrap up for this session.
Maybe we can take the rest of the questions to next week.
We're going for about an hour and a half. So Yeah, let's do that unless any more pop in. But guys, thanks heaps for joining the live call. It's been fantastic. Great questions. Hope our answers were helpful. Again, if you want follow up or you were confused by anything, just email or post in the Facebook group, and we'll get back to you. And otherwise, we'll have a live call next week for module 2, week 2 on networking. So if you come up with a question on networking in the meantime, write it down and ask it when we do that call. Anything from you, Joey?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you as well. Like I didn't expect this many questions actually, and I'm just really happy to see that people are liking the course and that people are anticipating that much and are really working on their plans like we hoped to get when we were creating this course. It's just great to see that so many people are really working on it.
Yeah, totally.
So thanks for me.
Also, this was our first time doing a live Q&A, so if you guys have any recommendations for how this could have gone better, let me know. But
yeah,
like I've said in the emails, if you guys have questions during the week that you want to be answered, just submit them at a time. That way I have them down on paper beforehand, and it'll be a little bit easier once the call gets going.
Sure, yeah. All right.
Cool, man. Thanks, guys. Sam, I see you later. Connor, I see you later. I'm going to grab some wine and chill.
See ya.
Yeah, man. Bye, guys.